Welcome back once again to the tutorial section, and in the last tutorial we created the service function that will help us create a user, get all user, and then get a single user by the ID. And we use this method find by PK, and the PK means primary key. We're passing the ID of the user we want to get. Now we just have two more methods to create, that is delete a user by ID and then update a user. So for the deleting of a user by ID, let's create another method. This is also going to be an asynchronous method, and we can give it the name delete user by ID. And then since we want to delete user by ID, we need to pass in the ID whenever we call on this method, and then we'll be returning we need to first of all get that user, and then return some kind of messages in case the user is not there in the database. And you can just kind of skip that if you don't want to, but it's very important we have that. So first thing is, let's just quickly create a method to get the user. We use await model, which is user dot find by PK, and then we pass in the PK, which is the ID is the primary key. And then forget the user, then we can do an if else conditional check there. But if there's no user, because this will return a null. If no user, if the value is null, then have if block body here, we just want to return no, we want to return a string of user not found. I know we're not doing some exception handling here, and this is just straightforward and very basic, and in the subsequent demos we'll do most of the exception handling and every other thing that we need to do. Okay, so if there's no user, then this will just return this message of no user. But if there's a user, then there's a method on Mongoose which we can work with, and that is we can go ahead and use the await the user which we get. We can call on the destroy method, so that will remove the record from our database. And if that happens, then we can go ahead and just, if that is successful, we can go ahead and return our statement user deleted. Just have my exclamation there. So that is basically for the delete method. Now lastly, for updating a user, let's also have an asynchronous method there. I'll call it update user, and then this will actually need we'll be passing in the ID. We'll need to pass in some payload here, so we can have its ID and then a payload. Now the ID will help us to get the record of the user first, the person we want to update, and then the payload will be the new item we want to put into the user's record. So that's why we'll be having that separated. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get the user first, and once we get the user, then we can go ahead and update the user. So we can, just like we have it on the delete, we can have it const user equal we just go ahead and await. We need to get the user, and if the user is not there, we can go ahead and run the error. We can use await this dot get by user ID. Also, we can work with this method with Mongoose, and then with Sequelize, I mean. So we'll get the user, and if the user is not there, if there's no user, then just return this message, return this response, user is not found. And then if the user exists, if the user is there, then we can just go right straight ahead and update the user. So we can just return type of user dot update, and then for the update we'll need to pass in whatsoever we'll be bringing in at this time around, and we can have the spread. We can spread whatsoever the item or the payload we are getting from the form or from the front end, or anybody who is passing us this data variable. So that is basically all the CRUD functions which we'll be working with, and in the next video tutorial we'll be working with this function with our express controllers and our express routes, and then you get to see that. So thank you for sticking around, and see you in the next tutorial section.